Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. I'm Micah Frankel. If you see this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Catch this on social media. It's like and share. If you see this the audio version on the podcast. It's share, write, and review, I believe. All those would be greatly appreciated. Got to start off today by letting everybody know, I'm pretty sure what you already knew, that when you're watching the UFC event and they're showing us all those neat displays and statistics, cage control, amount of cage time, strikes landed, strikes attempted, takedowns attempted and landed, those statistics are just for the viewer. The media can see what's on TV if they're watching TV. They can't see it there live, so it's not like those are getting directly written into on-site recaps. It's not like those statistics are being presented to the judges after each round so that they can make a more informed decision. They literally have nothing to do with how the judges will score the round. I've interviewed and spoke with judges before. The part that weighs heaviest to them is most likely, and usually they're looking for the cleanest landed strikes or the biggest moment of a round. Yes, a knockdown, one huge punch, a high kick. Those can change a round if it's the biggest moment of the round. Wanted to bring both of those up because I feel like they weigh heavily into what we saw play out this weekend. UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. That was the weekend's main course. Welcoming back the former bantamweight champion of the world, 2 years away due to a PED suspension for TJ Dillashaw. A lot of subtext going into this one, facing a Corey Sandhagen, who the two of them were training partners while Dillashaw was working with the Elevation Fight team over in Denver, Colorado. Sandhagen's still a member of that team. That's one aspect. Then you have former champion, rising contender, obviously tension. They knew each other. How does Sandhagen feel about Dillashaw's suspension? That was never really a topic of public nature, but it's something that could still come up. You have all the questions surrounding Dillashaw. How long was he cheating for? Is he done cheating? How much were the PEDs helping him? Can he still take damage the way he did before? Is he still as sharp as he once was? All those questions, would they be answered? We get to the fight, and what we get is an exciting affair that from the beginning I felt was being led by Corey Sandhagen. Sandhagen buckles Dillashaw early with a punch, stops him dead in his tracks. And then as Dillashaw is trying to bring in the forward pressure, Sandhagen hits him with a flying knee. They hit the ground. Sandhagen has an inverted triangle locked up. Dillashaw, yes, he's getting some pressure, some top time, but he's also getting warned about fingers in the fence, his fingers in the cage. Sandhagen goes for a heel hook. Looks like he has it in good enough that Dillashaw has to squirm his way out of it. Could have been just me, but it looks like, and we learn in between the rounds, there was a pop. The leg is compromised. So, to reiterate, gets stuck by a punch, eats a flying knee, trapped in an inverted triangle. Knee is messed up from a heel hook. The damage, the bigger moments in the round, all Sandhagen, all three judges, Dillashaw. Surprising. Second round, you get a left hook knockdown, scored by Sandhagen, a flying knee. He opens up Dillashaw with a right hand. It causes a cut inside of the right eye of Dillashaw. Doctor immediately has to come in. It's such a bad cut that it was nearly fight finishing, so it's almost another fight ending moment right there, and the eye is an issue. You see Dillashaw pawing at it, having to clear the blood from it. It is hampering him. He's having to blink it out. The third round, Dillashaw comes out hard. His leg kicks are working nicely, but again, he's getting stuck with punches, getting peppered, and starting to wear a crimson mask. He was bloody after that second round. Clean going into the third, clean going into the fourth, clean going into the fifth. Coming out of each, though, a lot more bloody than he went in. And if I don't know anything, I'm thinking that's probably because he's getting hit. I've seen other fights where the same cut men, have been able to stop the bleeding, and we don't see that kind of damage being worn by the guy who was cut. Dillashaw's bloody after each round. It's either bad defense or some really great offense. Or how are you not getting hit if you're continuing to bleed? It's beyond me. We have a fourth round where the nose of Dillashaw is starting to get enlarged, busted up on the bridge. In space, he's still slamming home these leg kicks, doing a very good job, but taking plethoras of shots to the face. The cut is getting larger. He's bleeding. And the bigger shots are still being landed by Corey Sandhagen. Almost missed the third round left hook at the bell. At the bell as it gets, on the edge of being a dirty shot from Corey Sandhagen, who has never seen to be one of those kind of fighters. But again, it was a big moment that definitely knocked back the head of TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw's best moments came in the fourth round, able to land a staggering leg kick that knocked Sandhagen off base, but it was nothing ever that you saw Sandhagen go to a desperation change of stances and having to protect the leg. Fifth round, still more leg kicks. Sandhagen wearing them well, still able to move, but what became an issue was Sandhagen getting his back taken while standing and being pushed against the cage and getting covered in Dillashaw's blood. There was a lot of that control time in the round. There was even time with Sandhagen on his back, but not much ground and pound to come from it. The round just before it ends, you see a spinning back fist from Sandhagen, knock Dillashaw 2 feet to the left. We go to the judges' scorecards, and a split decision goes in favor of the former champion, as you've all already heard. And to my surprise, I thought the damage, the bigger moments, the closer to fight finishing moments all came from Corey Sandhagen. Dillashaw, you've never seen him look this bad. You've never seen him take a beating in this fashion. The eyes were swollen. The nose is swollen. The cheeks are swollen. This was a full worked over beating where the damage that was on Corey Sandhagen looked to be blood, and it was all of TJ Dillashaw's blood. A controversial split decision in favor of the former champion. I am quite surprised and perplexed by the judge's decision that 8.5 minutes is what it accumulated to of control, is what went in favor of Dillashaw. I know control is supposed to matter, but let's not forget that we're not too far separated from a time where Johnny Hendricks was really verbally beaten down about his control of Robbie Lawler against the cage. And we fast forward 6 years, and now we're having TJ Dillashaw applauded for just stalling tactics, for just controlling against the fence, for not being offensive, for not being aggressive. I don't understand how you can score the rounds, and when the effective striking is already in the favor of Sandhagen, how you can continue to score the rounds, saying the grappling control edged it out. There was not a closeness of the strikes. There was a closeness on a strike total, but light years apart on the amount of damage done. Herald him for his toughness. Herald him for his willingness to get in there. TJ Dillashaw, though, did very little damage. Got a very favorable decision. Would appear to be in line to face the winner of Jan Sterling and a possible title shot. Dillashaw himself in the post-fight interview spoke to the thought of wanting to maybe remain active. After Dillashaw and Sandhagen, you're looking at Rob Font and Jose Aldo. If both guys want to stay active, those are the options. The decision is controversial, according to Sandhagen, who is taking the loss like a champ. He has been told that he is still one fight away from a title shot. Obviously, you don't lose much from this. You barely got touched in this fight. You let your back be controlled against the fence too often, and I don't know how we can make that a huge deal, as that was a giant detriment. TJ Dillashaw, though, also surprised me because in the post-fight interview, he talked about, after saying that he'd like to remain active. He did say it. Didn't know about the title shot right away because he'd like to stay active. You can applaud that after 2.5 years away, but you don't know if that's reality because post-fight press conference, Dillashaw informs everybody of a torn MCL he fought with. Oh, how very Tom Brady of him. A shoulder injury that is hampering him currently. A foot injury that was hampering him during workouts all week. And I start to question. I don't start to question just Dillashaw. I actually add credit to Dillashaw there and his toughness. But I question the joke of a commission. The joke of fighter safety, of how with all these ailments, Dillashaw was able to do anything to be able to get himself on the mat, to get past the medicals, and to still be allowed to perform. The fighter is going to do whatever it takes. His team is going to do whatever it takes. That's why we have a commission in place, fighter safety, and not just the promotion. The NFL keeps pushing guys out there because there's no governing bodies. Commissions are supposedly there to be that stopgap, to be the people that thought better of. You know, that clear head in the room. And they don't appear to be doing that for the fighters, for the athletes, especially if you're just letting a guy that's, of course, already the walking wounded, not the walking dead, but the walking wounded still somehow make his way into the octagon. It's beyond me. It was a credible fight. I feel like they got the wrong winner, but both guys put on a great performance. Co-main event, I thought it was a super opportunity for Kyler Phillips to announce himself, to make a statement that he is a presence and a force at 135 pounds against Julian Paiva, jumping up from 25 to 35 on short notice. It was already going to happen, but this is a short notice opportunity, and Phillips came out hard as he does, and on fire. A left straight with a knockdown early, and then the rest of the first round was brought to you by the right elbow. Julian Paiva walked into it quite often, getting dropped on his face. Falling into takedowns. Getting dropped on his face is a little harsh, actually, because that would have constituted a knockdown. Falling into takedowns and then falling down to his knees. Getting hammered at the end of the first round. And after getting staggered by 3 elbows and that left straight, getting lit up in that first round like a Christmas tree, I thought easily, I posted it on Twitter, 10-7. After rewatching it, okay, 10-8. Definitely a 10-8 round. How could it not be a 10-8 round? And one judge agrees with me. Unfortunately, the other two only felt that catastrophic beating deserved your traditional 10-9. No, there was a great variance, especially with the finishing position of top control and strikes just being rained down from Kyler Phillips to Paiva. I do not agree with the scorecards after we hear them. Paiva, to his credit, does monster back in the second and third round. He's able to get some top time, land some big right hands. And if you want to tell me that Paiva was able to steal the second round and win the third, I could believe it. But if you tell me that you see all three of those rounds as 10-9s, I cannot agree with that. A draw was the right call. Hard to believe also that all three judges gave what I felt was a pretty close second round in favor of Phillips. I gotta be honest, it was a bit wider of a gap than I thought after initially watching it, but it still felt like Phillips is rocking Paiva and did not get enough credit in that second round either. You cannot stop Darren Elkins, and once again, he proves that his gas tank and will is deeper than almost anyone's. Derek Maynard forces the fight into grappling exchanges early. He has a deep guillotine, deep triangle, and a deep armbar. But Elkins, as he does, is able to get out, fight through, and keep pressuring. Now, I've seen Derek Minner win scrambles before, be in control, and start to go for flashy submissions. Back all the way in 2018 against Jordan Griffin, while going for a leg lock, he ends up getting armbarred because he was starting to gas. Here, we're going for a front choke. You can see that gas hit E, and at that moment, Elkins pops his head out, pushes Minner over, and that's when the grind starts. Elkins pushes his way to a crucifix position and pounds his way to the winner's column. It wasn't just the main and the co-main event that we saw issues from the judging. On the main card in women's flyweight action, Maycee Barber versus Miranda Maverick. That one is a split decision that goes in the favor of Maycee Barber. The first round, 100% all the way, was about Miranda Maverick, her forward pressure, a very, very slow start from Barber, who could not find her strikes, was not pulling the trigger, all Maverick round one. Round two, Maverick is the one the first 90 seconds, pushing the pace, letting go of combinations. You do see Barber get off 2 punches and a kick landing, but coming up short on a couple other opportunities. They stall on the fence for a couple seconds. Maverick is then able to take control back of the position. Maverick gets a takedown and spends the last 50 seconds hanging out on Barber's back. You win early, you win late. I don't know how that's not a Maverick first 2 rounds. I don't know how we're not going into that third round 2018 Maverick, right? Barber pushing incredible pace, getting Maverick against the fence. She's looking for a takedown. She's landing her shots. And that's when we hear one of the gems of the night comes after the split decision. Dominic Cruz with the enlightened comments of, well, the judges must be putting more weight into the third round, which is impossible because scorecards are collected after every round. But I guess when you're just reaching for straws, attempting to try to make sense of things, you'll grab for anything. It was like ESPN needed to grab a couple extra commercials because the first 2 times they ran highlights of the main event, they were only showing Corey Sandhagen highlights. That's how lopsided the main event was. Back to that controversy. ESPN was only able to show Corey Sandhagen highlights. Well, the analysts are still trying to justify to us the importance of the 8.5 minutes of back control. Well, ESPN is showing the importance of this hook, that jab, that jab. But judges be judges, and that's what judges are doing, and that's what you do when you're an analyst, is you justify the judges. Unless you're, me, freelance. Continuing on with the card, the main card kicked off with what was a beaut. It was MMA Twitter's most hyped up fight. It was the fight everybody was looking forward to. Adrian Yanez versus Randy Costa, and it's Yanez picking up the win by second round TKO. It was a duel of the jabs in the first round. In the first 3 minutes and 30 seconds of that duel was dominated by Costa, painting Yanez's face red with his blood, opening up the nose, putting in work. All the early output, though, would wear on Costa as his gas tank would deteriorate quickly. Yanez would pick up the pace, start to move forward, and was turning up the heat for the last 90 seconds. Marching forward, jabbing at his will into the second round, and that's where he's drawing out the reactions from Costa, getting Costa against the fence. You saw the jab, right hand, then the jab, pair of hooks high, jab, pair of hooks low, and then that's when a right uppercut drops Costa down to his knees. A flurry of hooks finishes it on the ground. 135 pounds. It was quite the night for them, and a third now knockout in a row for Adrian Yanez. The feature prelim at 185 pounds, Brennan Allen, Puno Soriano. Soriano coming out early with his big hooks. Allen is able to find the range in the later half of the first round, starting to answer back with short shots coming straight down the middle. The knee would be pivotal, and the right body kick of Brennan Allen would separate the two as the onslaught continued. It's now a 3-fight win streak for Brennan Allen, picking up the decision 1-10 of 11, and calls out Sean Strickland or Edmund Shabazian. I'm liking the call out and loving the way that Brennan Allen has been fighting since moving down to South Florida. Pardon me on that one. Also at 185 pounds, talking about speed, feints, and jabs, Nasruddin Imavov impressive in taking out Ian Heinrich by TKO. Imavov early with a piercing jab, battling the Ian Heinrich low kicks. And as the first round went on, it was Imavov freezing up Heinrich and then drawing out reactions with the feints. First with the foot stomp and then with the shoulder fake. You saw a lot of confusion from Heinrich. The body chart started to open up in the second round. A jab knocks Heinrich back to the cage as he was trying to load up for his punch. Got intercepted, taken off balance. A knee through the middle drops Heinrich down, and the ground and pound finishes it for a big win for Nasruddin Imavov. Welterweight action, quite possibly a career saver. Mickey Gall submits Jordan Williams. Early on, they crashed into each other, got into the clinch. Short right hands from Gall obviously stung Williams. Gall jumps on a guillotine, is able to transition to the back, takes home the RNC, his 6th finish out of his 7 wins, all 6 rear naked chokes. This one possibly a career saver for the Dana White's looking for a fight veteran, taking out the Contender Series veteran. There was a lot of questioning Mickey Gall after the soft start to his UFC career. Mike Jackson, Phil Brooks, then mixed results. This one was definitely back against the wall territory. Julio Arce, he's down to 135. And I like the way he looked down there. It took him a moment to adjust to the speed, but the power still translated, able to get Andre Ewell out in the second round. The left hook was a devastating weapon. Arce, don't forget, this guy has a win over Dan Ige. He has one of those quality wins where it ages well. We're all the way out here and be like, wow, he beat that guy. Definitely a player at 135. You got Arce. We talked about the guys at the top of the card. Julian Paiva pulls off the upset. You have Sandhagen and Dillashaw still at the top of the division. Randy Costa takes the loss, but man, Costa versus Arce would be amazing. Or even Yanez, Arce, both would be amazing. 135, so much depth. Love that division. Turn our attentions now to some news this week. Legacy Fighting Alliance has announced that LFA 114 will be August 27th, St. Louis, Missouri. The main event will be a featherweight title bout. Lyoto Machida protege Bruno Souza, who's 9-1, is going to be taking on Hawaiian Kana Kawaihi, 6-1, coming off of a big knockout victory in the LFA. We know that a lot of fighters are unhappy with the UFC. Add Stipe Miocic to that list. The former heavyweight champion feels that he's entitled to a trilogy fight with Francis Ngannou without waiting. Quick to point out that when he regained the title from Daniel Cormier, the UFC had them run the trilogy. Why is he not getting that same opportunity that DC got? He feels that he should obviously be ahead of anyone who's in an interim title fight, Derek Lewis, Surreal Gone. And to compound his feelings, we've now seen Miocic start to flirt with the competition as Chatri Sityodtong, the head chairman of One Championship, had put out, "Who should I sign?" And Miocic answered with a interesting, thoughtful emoji. Other UFC news. Following his win at this past weekend's UFC Fight Night, Mickey Gall, at the post-fight press conference, informed the media he would like an opportunity to fight Carlos Condit. The two had been booked to fight in December 2019, but that bout was scrapped after Carlos came down with an injury. Condit has won 2 of his last 3. Gall's coming off of a win after 2 losses, I believe. I'd say let's do it. They booked it once. Why not? Let's do it. Continuing in the UFC news, the UFC plans to return to Madison Square Garden November 6th and to bring a welterweight title rematch with them. Usman Covington 2, November 6th, and slated to be UFC 268. Since the first time they met, Kamaru Usman has defended the welterweight title 3 more times, twice beating Jorge Masvidal and taking care of Gilbert Burns. Covington has not fought since September of 2020, a win over Tyrone Woodley. That was rebounding from the loss to Usman for Covington. And as we talked about a moment ago, Julio Arce has a win over Dan Ige, a win that ages very well. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Covington. Woodley followed up the loss to Covington by losing to Vicente Luque and is now turned to boxing and is going to be doing celebrity boxing against Jake Paul. I'd say that win is aging less well. Got some Bellator news. After being set to fight at Bellator 263, Magomed Magomedov and Raufeon Stots has been rebooked for Bellator 264. The promotion will be returning to London October 1st. The main event will be a welterweight contest, Michael Venom Page versus Douglas Lima 2. Since their first meeting, MVP has won 5 in a row against decent competition, while Lima has only won 1 of 3 against stellar competition. When I say that, let me explain. The 5 wins of Michael Venom Page, their combined record is 52 wins and 11 losses. Very, very respectable. Will Lima's 3 fights, the competition's combined records, 92, 12, and 3. He has been fighting A-plus competition. And some news from Invicta FC, announcing that August 27th, be Invicta FC 44, women's strawweight title fight. We'll see Emily Ducote and Danielle Taylor battling for the belt. Well, the bantamweight title is up for grabs as Lisa Springer-Verrazzo battles Tanisha Tennant. This week, One Championship returns to action. It's One Championship Battleground. Muay Thai flyweight title fight. Sam A versus Prajan Chai is your main event. Co-main event, former 2-division champion Ang La Unsong versus Leandro Atides from Brazil, who's won 4 of his last 5 by knockout. Your co-main event. We also got Gustavo, talented Cuban wrestler, taking on Japanese submission artist Ryuto Sawada, and the sophomore MMA appearance of 17-year-old phenom Victoria Lee. UFC Fight Pass will have lion fights this week. They have some AFL action. And they also have on Friday night, the event I'm going to tell you about right now, LFA 113. Heavyweight title fight main event. Vernon Lewis versus unbeaten Thomas Peterson. Peterson 4-0, 4 first-round knockouts. Lewis, a 12-fight vet, the veteran of the two. He's won his last 4 in the LFA, 2 by knockout. And this guy, way back, all the way in 2014, fought for the Legacy FC heavyweight title. You know this will be a big one for Vernon. The co-main event, Ricky Camp from Guam, is coming off of a title victory in Hawaii, will take on Greg Fisher, Maryland native, who his last 5 opponents have all been regional champions. Greg has 5 wins by submission. Camp comes on in a 6-fight win streak. 5 of those are finishes. He has a big right hand. Had an interview to talk with Fisher. That one's up right now. In the featured fight in the welterweight division, you got Steve Jones, 8-2. The guy is a grinder that likes to take it to the ground. Trains with a very talented BJJ squad in Texas. Takes on Chris Brown. Had an opportunity to talk with Brown. We know he's a counter striker that likes to keep it flashy. His last performance against Calvin Rayford was dynamic. Saturday, you don't get these Saturdays often, but we have one of them. It's Bellator versus the UFC. It's a choose your promotion weekend. It's a do you have 2 screens ready kind of weekend. Bellator 263 from the Forum in Los Angeles, California, and it's the biggest Bellator event the promotion has ever had. At least the biggest main event they've ever put together on paper. Now, the greatest fight the promotion has ever seen, Michael Chandler, Eddie Alvarez, both fight. The first one, the second one, they are both wars where both guys got hurt. They both got dropped. They both escaped submissions. There was swings of momentum. The tide would change. It was crazy. Both of their meetings. This fight, the potential to exceed it. This fight already, as we head into it, is a battle between the 2 homegrown guys. Patricio Pitbull Freire, the featherweight champion, defending his title against AJ the Mercenary McKee, 17-0, all 17 in the Bellator cage. Freire, 3-time featherweight champion. He's your multiple division champion, also having that lightweight title belt. This one is crucial to the division. This one is crucial to the Bellator history, to have the biggest fight be a success and to be able to put 2 company guys, 2 Scott Coker guys in the position. Because to still think that the greatest fight in Bellator history was back in the Bajoran Rebbe days is not justice, does not do justice to the job that Scott Coker has done for the promotion. Pitbull, the guy is a finisher. His punches have been dynamic. He's been knocking dudes down from early on in his career, being more of a submission guy. A 7-fight win streak, 12 submissions, and 11 knockouts. Huge right hand, an incredible guillotine. Will McKee, that's 17-0, 6 knockouts, 6 submissions. 4 of his last 6 in the first round. He's just getting faster at finishing guys. And the way I judge it is the first 10 fights were the fights to build up McKee. McKee is the guy in Bellator that can show their system works. We've seen Cody Law, a couple other guys that they're starting to build right now. And they're all telling those guys, we can make you the next AJ McKee. Just follow our plan. Let us guide your career in that kind of boxing mold that we can guide you, get you the right experience to properly train you for the big fight. And here is the big fight against Pitbull Friday. Those first 10 were the ones that built up McKee. These last 7 have been the tough ones, and he's gotten 4 first-round finishes, 1 in 8 seconds, 1 in 1:11. He's passed every test with flying colors. Now here is the final exam. Can McKee go from a mercenary to a king, or does Pitbull continue to reign over the Bellator cage? The co-main event, Mads Burrell, who has won 7 in a row, had a cup of coffee in the UFC, and has now won 3 in a row with Bellator, takes on Emmanuel Sanchez. Sanchez, a staple of the promotion. He's been right there in contender talks at 145 pounds forever. A win over Sanchez puts Burrell right there in an opportunity to possibly face Friday if he retains. I'm saying that because I believe if McKee wins, McKee has already said he wants to go right up to 55 and jump in the face of Pitbull one more time and take that belt. Talking about 55, it's a division that Bellator hasn't been featuring a lot, but it is movie night at 45 and 55 at Bellator 263. Feature fight is going to be Manny Moreau, the underdog, who's won 3 in a row as the underdog, taking on Usman Nurmagomedov. Of course, the unbeaten protege, 12-0, a dynamic counter striker who really likes to kick. You also have Ismail Mamedov, 9 wins out of his 19 by submission, taking on the former champion, Brett Premis. And you have Chris Gonzalez, who monstered his way past Roger Herther with devastating ground and pound, taking on Goichi Yamauchi. 20 of his 25 wins comes by submission. On that undercard, you got names like Georgie Katahanian, Brian Moore, Hilaire Jones against Vanessa Porto. So it's a very nice offering with a spectacular main event. The UFC, of course, we said they're on the other side of that versus it's UFC Vegas 33, UFC Fight Night, Hall versus Strickland. A top 15 middleweight matchup. Uriah Hall has 13 of his 17 wins by knockout. Strickland, 23 wins, 10 by knockout. Both guys, 4-fight win streaks. We've seen Hall in the bigger fights before. We've seen Hall in the main events previously. No stranger to big fights of his own variety is Sean Strickland, a longtime King of the Cage champion who was in main events, who was in 5-round fights, but it's been a while since he's been there, now since his transition and his development with the UFC. Strickland has a beautiful jab, sometimes a slow starter, but when the guy comes out and gets going, starts letting his hands go, you see technical boxing and you see powerful punches. You don't see a lot of kicks that could come into play, as Hall, I would say, is more of your traditional martial artist in the matchup and has some incredibly flashy techniques, remember from his days on The Ultimate Fighter. Both guys I would call avalanches. They get going downhill, they just get bigger, more powerful, and there is no way to stop them. If you get in their way, you're just getting run over. I think that's going to be pivotal to see which guy gets their confidence going first. We've seen points where Hall has been timid. We've seen points where Strickland will allow himself to be pushed back and will play the counter striker and will just not be active enough. This is a mentality fight. The co-main event, well, the original co-main event, that one's been canceled. Unfortunately, Shamil Abdurrahimov versus Chris Daukaus is not going to happen. And the same news comes for what was on the main card to be Sam Alvey versus excuse me 1 second, Sam Alvey versus Roman Copy. Those were both supposed to be on the main card. Unfortunately, not happening. You know the fight game. It's a little bit wild. The new co-main event, Kung Ho Kang takes on Ronnie Yaya. Yaya, a longtime vet of Zuffa, seen him in the WEC, an incredible submission specialist who looks to drag the fights to the ground. Ho Kang, 17 wins, 6 wins in the octagon, 3 of his wins in the UFC by submission. The other 3 by split decision. If you're willing to play the jiu-jitsu game, it's going to be a long night against Ronnie Yaya. Another one I love on the main card. 2 strikers are going to go at it. This one getting elevated. You're going to see Zurak Adashev, Ryan Benoit, technical kickboxers. Benoit, a lot of power in his hands. Adashev has had more than 30 fights, kickboxing experience. That gets the bump up to the main card. And so does this one that I love. This is the one that I love. Brian Barberena against Jason Witt. Barberena, nicknamed Bam Bam. He's one of those guys that is in your face. Pressure, forward movement. Loves to make the fights gritty. I love that style. His 11th UFC appearance. 8 of them have went into the 3rd round, and those have all been grueling wars. On the other side, Jason Witt has 8 of his 18 wins by submission, and 7 of them come by rear naked choke. The guy gets on your back, and he finishes. On the undercard, Nico Montano versus Wu Yan. Montano, I'll tell you guys, when I first saw her, she was a wrestler, jiu-jitsu fighter, the boxing, the kicking, they both come along. I can't wait to see her back in the octagon and healthy. Well, Wu Yan, the Chinese fighter, 11 wins, 7 knockouts, comes to look for the finish. Coming off of the Contender Series, we got a couple guys fighting. You're going to see Colin Angle, 8-1, 7-fight win streak, taking on Maslik Agbadsarian, who is 5-1, 4 wins by knockout. Also want to highlight in bantamweight action, 135 so deep, 4-fight win streak, 7-1. Ronnie Lawrence is going to be taking on Trevin Jones, 13-6. Finishes in 3 of his last 4. In welterweight action also, pair of Contender Series alum, you got unbeaten Oren Kosi, who hasn't fought in a year. 7 wins, 6 knockouts, 4 in the first round. Will fill up Rowe, 7-3, 0-1 in the UFC so far. It's alright, you got a second chance. 100% finishing rate, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions. Bellator versus the UFC. I think the UFC is coming with a card that's going to bring us finishes, and that's going to bring us some new names to be excited about. Well, Bellator is looking to bring us their name to be excited about. There's a lot to always be excited about in the combat sports world. Also, real quick, before we want to touch on it, this is Cage Minds MMA show, but got to shout out some love to the bare knuckle boxing. Rachel Ostovich, evening up now 1-1 with Paige Van Zandt. And for my money, still killing it, stealing the show each time out, it's been Taylor Starling, the Killer Bee, with a 28-second TKO of Cassie Robb. They're both MMA vets that fought for King of the Cage. It was Starling coming out, getting right into Robb's face and unleashing a plethora of hooks until the ref jumped in. A beautiful finish. I gotta thank you guys for tuning in and listening. If you could, keep up with Cage Minds on social media. Cage Minds Combat Sports News on Facebook. At Cage Minds _CSN on Instagram. And it's the original at Cage Minds MMA on Twitter. The podcast is Cage Minds. The YouTube is Cage Minds MMA show. I appreciate you all for the support, for the likes, for the dislikes. Thanks for listening.